All right, folks, we're back with Fields Notes. And I guess first things first, we have to apologize, especially to Andrew for our long absence. But
But
we're
we're
back.
back, baby.
But we're back. I'm here with
We're
Alec
back.
and Sam. Um, Austin has now been converted to listener, it sounds like. So we'll get some feedback from him on the podcast.
Just dad things.
Just that things. So we're what, 6 games in. Um, a lot has changed. There's a lot to talk about. We're not going to talk about everything that we could because it would be like a 4 hour long podcast. And but we'll try to get some of the stuff that we should have been talking about in the next few weeks. For instance, we've talked about, well, I don't know if we've talked about, but I was thinking about doing some sort of, draft recap, very, very late draft recap in the next few weeks, so that we can, I mean, we'll talk about the rookies today, but being able to talk about the draft, all 6 rounds, now 6 rounds of the draft would be fun to go back and take a look at. So stuff like that. So
We could probably fit in some draft steals today if it
draft
doesn't
steals
take
for
too long.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Something like that would be great. Um, Nowadays, of course, we're trying to, appeal to our audience, and so we're going to try to keep it under an hour or so. We're not going to succeed, but we'll try. Yeah.
Not when our intros are 15 minutes long, Paul.
No, no, definitely not. So, what are we starting with? Talk about the league,
Where's-
big
yeah,
shakeups.
the state
Yeah.
of the league currently.
I mean, these new dogs, they're showing us up. I guess we got to talk about them.
Hey, we're still in the
Adcock.
playoffs.
Yeah, we're still in the playoffs, but not
I'm 5-1. I don't
the
know what about you
sustained
noobs.
dominance.
So,
Not the absolute dominance from years past.
no, there's been some more parity, and it's going to be an interesting playoff race, I think, where we have 7 that are easily contending for the playoffs, that is. Doesn't really, I thought it would be like 8 with Zach Ford, but that's kind of fallen off, and it sounds like he's going to be selling some pieces. So that'll be interesting to monitor as well, because I'm sure he's received about 1 billion trade requests.
He doesn't want to trade away any of his players, guys.
Yeah, I.
That is kind of the vibe I'm getting. Is he sounded like he sent out that message, and then I reached out to him, and he said he was going to stay pat on the players that I asked about. So I don't know if he's actually selling at the moment, but
I think he's interested. I think it's just
He
he
wants to
wants good
sell his
deals.
shit to you.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we'll see. I'm sure that there's some. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like once
Yeah.
I'll have to actually see some trades happen before I believe this message, but I do believe that he's trying to make some moves. And he has,
Yeah, probably.
because he has a ton of weeks left before. Like, do you really? I mean, it's kind of an interesting dynasty strategy to like. Are you going to trade early or trade later? There's more assets that contenders have to trade early, but then contenders get more desperate and are more sure of their position, or are more desperate to get that one piece to make it to, the sixth spot,
Yeah.
or maybe make it to the one of the buys. So I'm not really sure if it's better to trade early or trade later. What do you guys think?
Well,
I
I
would
think in a
assume.
lot of league. Go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say I would assume injuries taking toll on players
That's a good
and
point.
lineups also has like a really good like the longer you wait, the more desperate people are going to get from like a playoff perspective, and also from like an injury perspective of like I truly don't have any viable wide receivers that I could put in or viable running backs or yeah. So I think as you say that, it makes more sense probably to deal later in the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Um, we're gonna obviously talk about some of the trades that happened earlier in the season, but you look at like Todd trading for Derrick Henry early on. That's been a huge move for him, and it's just going. It looks like that's going to be uh, a huge move for him that pays off every single week of the regular season, contributing to possibly a top 2 seed. if you compare that to buying Derrick Henry late, it's probably going to cost more, and you're buying a 30-year-old running back for just a few weeks. You also have to consider that we have 22 people starting every single week. How much does one person make the difference at the end of the year? So to me, it almost makes more sense to, as a buyer, buy early. What do you think,
I think
Paul?
as a seller, maybe sell late, and you kind of have to like strike a happy medium between
Yeah.
sellers and buyers. I know like my strategy the last 2 years has been to buy up in the off season. Like I had that huge push to buy players last off season. Kind of did something similar to this season. Like I think off season is, if you buy into the right players, it could be monumentally good, or if you buy into the wrong players, it could be monumentally bad. So
It's tough with the
kind of a
older
double-edged sword.
guys because like Henry, because you get that I mean, quite a bit of a discount in the offseason. I mean, there's more uncertainty than just his age for this one, but um, God damn it. For all you Cleveland fans, I'm watching the game right now. Is
I knew it was gonna be
the what was I even saying? Uh, Okay, so like
seeing them play and seeing that they're still
yeah,
productive is a huge weight off your shoulders, kind of, and makes you want to trade for them.
yeah, you're like, okay, this isn't the year that they're going to completely fall apart, which
Yeah.
is it's an issue obviously with the older players. Like you're not sure if that wide receiver is finally going to, take a dive off the cliff. So, and for Henry, I mean, people are questioning him every single year, and clearly we shouldn't be. So yeah, what a
Well,
great move. What
another
a
player of Shane's, Cooper Kupp,
mm,
he's on a trade block, and it doesn't seem like people are willing to go all in on him. Same reason as Derrick Henry. That I think is interesting. Why? I mean, he did have the injury, right? More injuries as you get older. Definitely scares buyers off. But the Derrick Henry purchase works out great.
I
it's
think
all a
with Cup,
gamble.
my concern is just it lies in just the prolonged injury history for him. Like the last like 3 seasons has been pretty
Right.
injury riddled. So that is my concern if I'm like buying Cup right now. Granted, it's probably like a good buy low opportunity before we see him back on the field and back to
But what is
producing.
buying low? Do you think he gets traded for less than a first? I don't. And I think a first is a perfectly fair price. So buying low to me is buying less than a first. I just don't think that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, how many contenders have a bunch of firsts lying around? One of them,
Adcock.
but um, but other than that, like, so it is curious. Like, is Adcock gonna buy up more, or is he just gonna go for the youth movement? We'll see. That might be a perfect match for Zach, theoretically. Um, sorry, Adcock, for calling you Adcock and Zach, but yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. It is interesting though. This is gonna. Do you guys? I mean, this is quite the battle for the sixth seed, right? Fifth and sixth seed. Alec has pretty low points for, but is 4-2. We have pretty much identical points for Austin and Andrew. So this will be it's kind of a perfect scenario probably for testing out the six seed protection that we did not get rid of this offseason. I'm
Yeah,
curious.
good thing. I'm happy now. Or maybe I'm not because I'm low points.
Well, I mean, I think you probably are happy, don't you think? Or no, you're probably unhappy. Yeah, you'd be more likely to sneak in through the six with the 4-2 record. So yeah, you actually have to win your games. I mean, what do you think? Do you think now? I wonder if we're gonna change the rules again here, or if this is gonna feel good to have the six seed protection in, or if it's gonna feel bad
I mean,
to.
it feels good if you make the playoffs regardless.
I think like
Whatever the rule set is that allows you to make the playoffs, you're going to like that in the moment. I think
not. I'm not talking about like the individual people who have like obviously their selfish reasons, but like for the rest of us, like, am I going to feel good that you get kicked out of the playoffs if you do by the rule Probably, but that's just because it's you. So, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't like the 6 seed protection anymore, even though I got in with it last season. So it's just something to monitor for me, I guess.
It feels here's the I think the question to ask is, when is it beneficial to have this protection? And I would say it is beneficial to the people that have really good teams. They're scoring a lot of points, but they're catching bad matchups, and they have no hope of catching up in terms of wins. It feels good for that person to make the playoffs because they technically do have a better roster than the 6th seed or the 5th seed, or that's when it feels good, I think.
I
There's,
think
there's plenty of cases for why it doesn't feel good. I'm just saying that's when it feels good.
if we're talking about um, just competitiveness in the playoffs and kind of the best matchups for the playoffs, I feel like the like points for or that like 6 seed protection is pretty nice because like imagine if you started off really hot, let's say like you start out 4-1 and you get a shit ton of injuries and your team just is like not good or like not really like putting out like playoff caliber points anymore, and you sneak in just because like you had a good record, like you're just gonna get like absolutely bodied by like a team that is the first seed or the second seed. Whereas like if you have a team that like maybe comes on strong in the end or was good the whole season, just got unlucky, that to me feels like just from like a playoff caliber team perspective, I think
Yeah,
the 6 seed protection actually is pretty nice.
I think if the scoring is close, like it is right now, that kind of makes it feel bad because in reality, there's really pretty marginal difference between what Austin, myself, and Andrew have scored, but there is an order to it. And if you stick to the rule, you have to. Or if you have the rule, you have to stick to the rule. So 1 point less, and you're in the 7th seed, you're in. That I think feels kind of bad because you don't really. It doesn't feel like you're meant to have that spot as much as if it was a significant difference. So yeah, there's good and there's bad.
Well, moving on.
Yeah,
I guess we'll just have to see how we feel about it after we have a
we'll
few
vote on it
seasons.
once a year.
Once a year.
So, speaking more on like just Zach and Todd's success, do you feel like it's maintainable, or like is it going to be one of those things where these teams are sticky, or do you feel like there's going to be, I don't know, just you're going to see a big switch up? Like, who do you feel like sticks at their current standing or just where they're at, and who do you feel like falls?
I think we can all say, and I mean, I'll say with confidence that Adcock definitely seems like one of the top tier teams for the foreseeable future, next few years. It's
I agree.
it's a monster. He has draft capital still. He
Two
got
top five
Jaden
QBs.
Daniels. Yeah, he finally figured out his QB situation like on lock. We thought he had a great QB situation before. We did not foresee this. So it's a pretty great team. He did a great job rebuilding it.
I would agree.
I think he's definitely legit. And um, my one critique is that the defense is not elite. Um, I think it's a very good roster, and he has the draft capital to purchase players if he needs them, which is a great position to be in. But there's no like, who are the stars of this defense? It's just a lot of um, year to year guys, I guess I would say.
I mean, I'm always going to get on my soapbox for Brian Branch. I feel like
That's
he's fucking legit.
I will say his DBs are elite. His DBs are very good.
Stevies are good. The rest of the defense is, solid enough. And
Yeah, it's solid. It's just like it's not what I would consider an elite defense.
I mean, these picks buy you 5 elite defensive players if you wanted them,
Exactly, exactly.
So,
But he's
yeah.
doing just fine without. Like,
Yeah, why
I
buy
mean,
defense if you don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, this goes a lot further, drafting offensive players and then maybe a couple defensive players, maybe, um, and kind of, fitting in the pieces as you can, because defense is just obviously easier to acquire than offense. Although, can we quickly talk about the Ayuk trade? That was an interesting one. Ayuk for JJ, a fifth and a third.
I think
Um,
everyone's happy there.
I think Jack is the happiest because he finally got JJ McCarthy. I don't understand why he didn't just trade for a pick that could have drafted JJ though, because didn't he trade for a pick a little later? Wasn't that what happened?
He gave away Garrett Wilson for 2 firsts, but
Ah,
then I believe McCarthy went with the 7th pick, if I'm remembering correctly,
yeah. So why
before
didn't
he had
he
an
just
opportunity.
ask for the seventh pick?
I
Like
don't know.
get him a guaranteed JJ McCarthy. I don't know. I think that was a interesting
It
thing to
works out
do.
for him. He got Bowers with the 8th pick, I believe, and then
11th pick. I think he got Bowers, didn't
really
he?
was
Yeah, I think Bowers went.
Worthy at 8.
Was it Worthy at 8 and Bowers at 11? Yeah, Bowers at
Oh,
11. Okay, we're gonna get to
Damn.
the draft for sure.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, okay, I said that we're not gonna. We'll look at the rookies for sure, and we can talk
I
about
think
it then.
we look at the first round maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he's legit, and he can be better. He has the draft capital for it. Scary roster. We've been saying it for years. We're like, man, he's got the infrastructure. When's he gonna go in?
Yep, he finally made it.
And he didn't even have to go all in. He's just
He really
he's
didn't.
playing it
I don't
safe.
think
you
he
know,
really did go all in either from like the standpoint of previous teams that seemingly have gone all in, just absolutely unloading first rounds and second round picks. He still got a lot of them. And I mean,
lots of
it's
good
scary to
trades.
think that if the season starts to kind of, for whatever reason, go south, that he can start picking up really good assets. I mean, he already kind of did it with Ayuk, where he wanted to acquire another like top 15 wide receiver, and he went out and did it, and he didn't even
Yeah.
have to spend like a pick for it necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty light, I thought. Not like ultra light or anything. I just think it was a nice pickup, I thought. Man, a lot of things went right. Todd,
Yeah,
thoughts?
Well, he's getting unlucky with the injuries. I was gonna say that he's legit, but he's looking a lot more shaky with all of his injuries. So I will say I don't think he's gonna maintain his 2 seed. I do think that overall as a dynasty roster, it's a fantastic roster. Um, but the injuries are definitely brewing with his ability to maintain a 1 or 2 seed, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been a lot of injuries. Kohansky left a man. We talked about how Kohansky left him a pretty good roster and a pretty good situation to take over. He's done a really good job with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I want to shout out Kohansky. Unfortunately, he got injured. Not Kohansky, Hutchinson
I was
for
like, oh, what happened to Kohansky?
for drafting Hutch with the 111. Great pick.
I mean, Hutch is before the injury was probably the most valuable IDP. If
yeah, for sure.
maybe a linebacker had him, but I think Hutch was probably the most valuable IDP.
So for as bad of a manager as Kohansky was, he made a few good picks and he didn't do anything. I mean, he did a few outlandish things, but this is a great pick.
Just make Paul's team a lot better.
Hey, Alex as well.
What? My
We can argue about that one all
McCaffrey's not
day.
even playing this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. So Justin Fields
Uh,
is not starting, huh? So that's been decided. It should be interesting to see.
Rest in peace, our 4th rounder to the Bears.
No, I think we're gonna get that fourth. I
How many does
believe
he have to play? Half?
half of snaps.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
3 more games. Do you think Russ starts every? I don't know.
That defense is nasty, and Russ is not complete garbage. So I don't know. I think if he's healthy, he's gonna stay in.
I
Yeah.
think we do have to also give credit to Todd for like building this team up in addition to
Oh,
what
yeah.
Kohanski already laid the floor for.
Oh yeah,
Like getting Nico
definitely.
Collins for like kind of like granted the time it was a fair trade, but like just the meteoric rise of Nico Collins. The Derrick Henry trade was really like savvy
Uh-huh.
and smart.
He's had some really
Drafting
good
No,
team
I'm
CJ
picks.
definitely
Stroud.
not trying to take anything away from Todd here because this team would be a losing team if Kohansky was still managing it for sure. So, so
Yeah.
great job, Todd. This is it's I know that injuries are tough. There's been a lot of injuries throughout the league, but it's still looking good overall.
Finally, that Sam Darnold McCaffrey trade bited me in the ass, man. Sam Darnold.
This man's trying to recover out here. Like, oh, it wasn't like a
Yeah,
terrible
yeah,
trade.
yeah. Fucking right. It is. I am very curious on if Sam Darnold continues his hot streak. So.
You know, if you look back at that, it actually becomes Sam Darnold and Aiden Hutchinson for McCaffrey was the trade. At this point, you might take the other two.
All right. Fair enough.
All right, let's skip down to kind of
Okay.
the rest of the playoff competitors. So Paul's next.
Yeah,
Paul,
I would
obviously,
say
you think your team's sticky.
I feel good about my team. Yeah. Completely revamping the QB situation was obviously key for me. So I feel a lot better going forward because everything else you can figure out. QBs are the hardest to get solid. So if my QBs are solid, I'm happy, and the rest of the roster, some aging here and there, but I feel pretty good.
I
Yeah.
view you and Sam as very solid rosters that have good enough depth to make it through injury season, bye season, and I could see one of you two sneaking into that 2 seed, or even, I mean, there's a long season ahead. All I'm saying is I could see you guys, one of you two, sneaking into a bye, not even sneaking, but taking a bye.
Yeah, I
The
think
rosters are solid.
I think I think Adcock is tier one here, and then it kind of becomes maybe Todd, me, Sam, and tier two so far.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and then maybe it's another tier, you, Alec, Austin, and Andrew, and then that'll be a dogfight, and then it's going to be a dogfight for the second seed as well. So, but who knows? Maybe Adcock runs into some unluckiness on the matchups, and that would make me happy. Sorry, Adcock. So we'll see.
This week is not starting off well, though. Fucking Cody Barton, 35 points. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, it's brutal.
This production out of nowhere, man. I'm telling, it's stolen valor from
Stolen
Singleton.
Okay.
I had to like force rank like the playoff teams. I would say Adcock won. I'm gonna probably give a slight edge. He's got, if his team wasn't injured, like if he still had Aiden, still had Nico, still had Rasheed Rice, I'd probably call Todd 2. Then I would say Paul, you're 3. I would be 4. Alec, like once your team gets healthy, you're like right in the mix with all these like the top 4 teams, and then I think it's like Andrew and Austin have had some like hiccups to start the season, I think.
Yeah, anything can happen though with like what you're saying, the injury luck. It all can turn around. First, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, some of them guys are out for the season, but a lot of us have injured guys right now, and that will come back. So as that happens, I think anything can happen. I think the tiers, like it's really, to me, it's one. If we're, you could put the two tiers below Adcock, but it's maybe one more like one big tier if you think about it on a season-long scale. Although I'm not scared of Andrew's team, so sorry, Andrew. So
I think Adcock deserves that tier 1 on his own for now, just because he's consistently putting up massive points. Every other team that we've described below him in this second tier is capable of those types of weeks, but they have not been as consistent as Adcock. I think that's the biggest thing. So the tiers that you guys gave, I think, are very accurate. I'd put like you guys said, you, Todd, Paul, Sam, and Todd on tier 2. I think I'm in that tier if my team becomes uninjured. But for now, I think I have to be in the low playoff tier, fighting for my life.
All right, let's talk about our favorite topic on this podcast, JSN. He has changed hands a few times, but especially since Andrew was asking for the podcast, I figured at least that we should talk about him a bit. JSN,
Favorite
how are we
segment.
feeling?
Well, as JSN's biggest defender last podcast season, I don't think I'm in that same position. I don't think I can be in that same position. Sam tried trading him to me multiple
Yeah, I was
times
gonna
this
say.
offseason. I think for as low as a first and a third, I wasn't pulling the trigger. So
Maybe we should analyze this in terms of the trades. How do we feel about trade one? Curtis Samuel, Byron Young, and a 2025 second. Whose second is that, Sam?
It was Kyle's, so like
Kyle's,
an
okay.
early 25.
And then that's for JSN and a third. I remember thinking at the time that it was quite light of a return for JSN. It's been a few months now. I mean, like,
but Bryce Young was still worth a first, and there was still hope that he could turn it around.
wait, I thought this is Byron Young. Was this Bryce?
No, it's Byron. It was
Oh,
Byron.
it's Byron? Okay,
Okay.
never mind. Yeah, it is a little light, but continue, Paul.
It could be a little light, but it sounds like he was shopping around all off season. Apparently
Yeah.
not to me. I didn't hear any noise of JSN.
You've been a JSN hater forever.
I mean, we did talk about it when we were in Dallas.
Oh, we did talk
so,
about it a little.
yeah.
I'm not the.
Yeah.
I think compared to you guys, I was a hater. I felt like I was being more neutral, but I probably sounded like a massive hater, so that's probably fair.
Yeah, I would say that I shopped quite like a lot for JSN. Like I shopped him to Kyle, I shopped him to Alec, I shopped him to Andrew, I shopped him, or maybe not Andrew, but like I shopped him to like 3 or 4 teams. And granted, I was pretty high on Curtis Samuel at the time, just because I felt like he was going to be like the target hog for Josh Allen, and that didn't work out. Like I probably valued Samuel higher than Samuel was going for at the time. So that's why it like looks light in retrospect, but yeah.
Why were
Probably
you
should've
looking
taken-
to shop JSN? Did you not kind of feel it going forward, or were you trying to get specific
I
players?
think I was just sussed out on a lot of these second year wide receivers that I had, where it's like I had Tank Dell, I had JSN, had Addison, and I was just like, the more I looked at my team, I was like, I need to do something about this. Like, I don't feel confident like slating in these guys to be like week to week guys.
Well, you moving on from JSN was what led to me talking some shit, which led to me winning $1 from you last week. So, thank
I
you,
will
JSN.
say, I don't think JSN would have really been that big of a contributor in that matchup.
Probably
That matchup was
He
doomed
would
to
not
start,
have been.
but-
Okay, and then let's move on to the second trade. Two first. I'm not sure. Looks like the 26 was Andrew's first. The desktop sucks. Do we know whose first this other 26 first was?
Team 2.
Can somebody
Off the
check
top
on
of my
their
head.
phone?
Yeah, let's take a look.
So Hufanga, JSN, and a second, 25 second. That looks like. Actually, yeah, I don't know who is that. Andrew's second that he got back, I guess. Yeah, I think he must have gotten back his own second for 25 and then gave his own 26 first and somebody else's 26 first.
Okay, pulling it up right now. So it was Sam's first. And then the 25 second is whoever the owner of. That's Kyle's 25 second.
Oh, it's Kyle's 25 second. Ah, okay. Doesn't feel as horrible with that being Kyle's. I guess I assumed it wasn't. Yeah.
Still
Okay.
two firsts.
Two
Pretty nice
firsts.
haul for Njigba.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really happy to sell for that. Hufanga, like It's a good
Eh,
DP,
he's fine.
but like I don't know if it's more than the throw-in. Like, do you value him as more than like a third, maybe? I mean, he hasn't done much this year. Has he
I
been
think he's
injured
one of
or
those type of players that
IR now?
you're not going to be able to acquire for a fourth, and if you really wanted to go and get him, it would be a third. So I think it's
Yeah.
fair to value him as a third.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a fan of that trade, I would say. So, JSN has had now one pop-off game. I think we could agree that this counts as a pop-off game. None others,
Sorry, my
maybe
dog's
this
pretty crazy.
season. Oh, dog in the background. And then maybe I was arguing 0 pop-off games year one. So now it's been, what, 23 games with one pop-off game, 1 out of 6 in the current season.
Yeah.
It's a little sketchy.
So taking that into account, and then also looking at his advanced metrics, which I have pulled up on my screen.
Perfect. Tell us.
So last year he was being targeted 19.7% of the time. This year he's actually being targeted less, surprisingly, 19.1% of the time. So you can say that that pretty much hasn't changed. You would like, as an elite receiver, for that to be somewhere in 22 to 23% range. The positive for him is that he ranks very highly in route wins against zone. He's elite at winning his routes against zone defense. So he does have some very good underlying metrics, which I think are not the exact arguments we were having last year, but part of the argument was where's the production compared to the profile, or in this case, where's the production compared to what the advanced metrics are telling us. So I think he's kind of in a similar boat to last year. You really need that production to come through, or for those target percentages to go up for you to really feel solid about JSN making that next step forward.
Yeah, and this offense has been passing. I mean, I guess I don't know if they've been passing more, but they've certainly been gaining a ton more yards passing.
They've been a,
Oh yeah,
they've been a better
they've been
offense.
passing like a lot more. Like from last season to this season, their pass rates are like night and day different. I think they pass like the most in the NFL.
Yeah, because I know that their yards per game has gone up maybe 50 yards per game. I think it's near 300 for passing. It's a ton of yardage that's out there. There's a ton of targets to go around, and of course he's getting some of the targets, but it doesn't seem like I don't know. If it's
It's
not high value,
19%, just like before.
90.
And they're
So
all slot snaps. He's 80% in the slot this year, which is even higher than last year.
I mean, great receivers earn good targets, right?
Yeah.
And he's getting targets still, but not at the rate that you're expecting from like a guy that you're spending 2 firsts on. And I mean, so it's sketchy. I wouldn't feel great about owning JSN right now, and I'm surprised that his value is as high as it is still. That one pop-off game is really holding him up, and also I do think that JSN somehow has somewhat of a little cult following going. So
Well, he has the name value for a little bit longer, and the advanced stats people will continue to argue for him. So
and the OSU people, because as
and
we
the
found
can't
out
forget the
as
OSU
Bears
people.
fans, the OSU fans are crazy. So um, and now the
I think there's
Steelers get
still
them.
hope. I will say I think there's still hope for him to become a step above what he is. I think that's why his value maintains.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly true. That's certainly true. But it feels like the odds are going down week by week.
Yeah.
All right.
22-year-old receiver. Anyways,
We wouldn't have really talked about JSN, but sorry, Andrew. But since Andrew was calling for the podcast, I figured we'd throw in JSN segment for old time's sake.
hey, and all the old arguments used to be Puka or JSN, right? Well, now you have both, Andrew. You don't have to fight any battles.
Okay, so we want to talk about a few major trades. Should we talk about Henry?
Yeah, we kind of went over
We kind of went
that
over
being a
Kenneth
catalyst.
Walker being a big. Maybe we just skip to rookies. Do you want to talk about Kenneth Walker at all? That was a big trade.
Yeah, I don't know if we really talked about him. Like we talked about Adcock's team, obviously, but we didn't necessarily talk about the impact that like Kenneth Walker has and just that trade at the time. It
Yeah.
was Jordan Addison, and a second for Stephon Diggs and K9, and both those assets that Adcock picked up are looking great.
Yeah, they're producing for him.
Yep.
They're big pieces of his team. So great trade for him to pick up two guys that are contributing right now.
And
Hurts
Addison
to look
popped
at.
around. So I got Addison for a second, which was fun. Now he's on Shane's team. So I mean, once a player goes to Sam's team, you know he's moving. Somehow, some way, he's going to my team, which is gonna go to Austin's team, is gonna go to Shane's team. It's
It's the incestual.
incestual, yes.
The only guy that has a permanent spot on Sam's roster is Josh Allen.
Oh yeah.
God bless
I mean,
him.
I've said that.
Maybe Fred Warner now.
Should
yeah,
we?
kind of from that.
So, guys, are we taking? Where is? Oh, this is the rookies. Are we taking Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen?
I mean,
You know my answer.
I think many of the competitors would say Josh Allen.
I think
And
all the competitors would say Josh Allen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Adcock,
Adcock.
just because he
Yeah.
owns him. But there's certainly, I mean, he's shot up probably too fast, but there's certainly an argument to be had for a guy that's 5 years younger and producing how he is. Should he be up there with Allen? I don't know. I'll take Allen.
I do think that there's some overreactions that happen to rookies for sure. Stroud was a pretty egregious example last year, in my opinion. Still, right now, I don't really know if he's worthy of being where he is at least on keep trade cut.
He's certainly a valuable asset, but
It's valuable for
probably
sure.
too expensive for his production levels.
Yeah, last year was when he was going above Josh Allen that it was ridiculous. Jaden Daniels is more understandable just because of the rushing upside. And I mean, he looks great. Jaden Daniels looks awesome. Let's be real. We'll talk about Caleb Williams a little bit here, but
Hey, I saw a stat last week though. Jaden Daniels throws to his first read like something like 85% of the time. I don't know about that.
hey, that's true. And I mean, who was the top in that category? If I'm
He was surrounded by like Will Levis, a bunch of like really bad quarterbacks actually.
The drop off is coming.
The drop off is coming. Or it's a very well. I think we can say it's a very nicely designed offense right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's history of Kingsbury falling off in the second half, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, but I don't want to take anything away from Jaden Daniels. Like the guy's come into the league and
he's
absolutely on
putting
fire.
You're
points on the
dumping
board
cold
with his
water on the
legs.
rookies.
He's thrown great deep balls. I mean, just because you're throwing on your first read often,
Just because your first read's open and you're throwing there doesn't mean that
you still have to hit them. You still
Yeah.
have to make a fantastic throw, and his deep ball's been insane, along with his rushing upside. There's a reason that he is where he is.
Yeah, but we should talk about the other end of that statistic, because at the other end of the statistic, if I recall correctly, it was guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Caleb Williams, top 3 or 4. So Caleb Williams is really going the opposite way. He's getting through his reads. I mean, I'm not saying that Jaden Daniels necessarily isn't. I don't, but like, yeah, he is throwing on his first couple reads mostly. Caleb Williams is looking really good. We had a couple rough weeks at the beginning there, but he's developing very nicely. Huge improvement week to week. It's been a joy to watch. So I'm really happy that I drafted him and traded for him. And I'm not letting Jaden Daniels being great, reduce my enjoyment at all. It's really fun to see all the rookie quarterbacks more or less succeed this year, right? Like, I mean, JJ, sorry, but Bo Nix has had some highlights. I watched him for the first time for a full game on Thursday, and he looked terrible. But
What a game.
that was just a horrible game all around. But also he won by a ton. So, but he's had good games too, and he also has that rushing upside. Jane Daniels speaks for himself. Drake May finally came in, threw 3 touchdowns, what a couple interceptions, had some great throws, some rookie moments as well. It's kind of it's a loaded rookie class, isn't it?
I was gonna say, if you have one of the top, I want to say 8 rookies from this year, you're really happy with being in on this draft. There's so many knocked out of the park.
Yeah, this is a fun rookie class for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
even
mean,
if you go down to like maybe, I think I would still have a Dunze over Bowers and Brian Thomas, but maybe I'd put May ahead of him still. But like a Dunze, I think maybe most people will put him at 8 of the 8 of 8. I'm not sure if it's because I'm a Bears fan or if it's because I'm actually seeing him play. But a Dunze even looks really good. Like he's open a lot. He's and it's
yeah,
just
just because you're not producing, as we've argued many times, it doesn't mean you're not going to be an amazing wide receiver in the future. I think certainly eye test for Rome is that he's going to be a beast at some point in his career, attached to Caleb Williams.
mhm. Like
That's why I say anyone that you own in these top 8, like I think you're ecstatic to own them.
yeah, wait, who has a Dunze?
Todd does.
Todd
Todd.
does, yeah.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen from a Dunze, and I mean I watch all the games, all the Bears games, and I watch them afterwards as well, the all 22. I think a Dunze is going to take over the number one wide receiver role for the Bears. Maybe it's next year, but he looks really, really good. He looks better than DJ Moore
This sounds
a
like
lot
some
of
DJ
times.
Moore slander.
I love DJ too, but
Don't
like I
appreciate
really love a Dunze. So I would love for him to get some more looks, maybe a little more, like get him a little bit higher on the reads list here, like get Caleb looking at him a little earlier. I think Dunze is looking fine. So, and he had the one pop-off game so far, which is really good to see. So, not to make this a Bears podcast, but yeah.
Yeah, so to talk about some other shakeups, though, I'd say you're still happy with Marvin Harrison, but you're not. I think the expectation for Marvin Harrison is definitely leaving his owners at least somewhat disappointed. Not like panicked and I want to sell him, but you probably expected more than you've seen from him so far for him to fall down to 4. What do you think?
I think
I mean, in like redraft, he was getting drafted like 6th or 7th overall. Like, I feel like those people are obviously like pretty upset with how he's been performing. But I mean, from a dynasty lens, I feel like he'll
Yeah, but I
just fine.
assume he will be fine. But people were talking about him as a generational prospect. You're talking about guys like Jamar Chase, like Larry Fitzgerald in the past, guys that you knew were going to, or Julio Jones, guys drafted extremely early and you knew were going to produce either instantly or, they're blowing the league up. I don't think he's done that so far. I don't think people are freaking out about it, but I don't think he's been the generational prospect that people were expecting. That's my only take. And that's not to say that he can't make it there still.
okay, I see what you're saying. And I mean, yeah, especially compared to Neighbors, I mean, it feels a little more disappointing, but he's still on pace for what, like 800 plus yards, 11 touchdowns, and that's just taking his first 6 weeks into account while he's still developing. Like he could go on an absolute tear in the second half. Like we've already
He
seen
could.
so much from him. Like this is great to see from a rookie wide receiver, getting the touchdowns, getting a big game, getting open. Like he looks good from what I've seen. I'm not watching all of Marvin Harrison's snaps or anything.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
first
he's fine.
glance,
I'm just saying it. You expect there's an expectation above for generational level prospects.
would you trade Neighbors for Marvin Harrison?
Absolutely not.
All right, that's fair enough, and I don't think I would either. But Marvin Harrison's going to be just fine, in my opinion.
he's gonna be fine. It's just what I said. It's just compared to the expectation.
Sure. So if we're gonna redraft, um, Neighbors above Marvin Harrison for sure, in my opinion. Then Jaden Daniels, I'm guessing in like 95% of people's drafts, Jaden Daniels goes 101. I'll still take
Mhm.
Caleb. I wouldn't trade Caleb for Jaden Daniels right now. For us, I mean, we have the 6 point passing touchdown coming in. Obviously, I'm a Bears fan as well. That makes a big difference.
Gotta
But
self-identify that one. Paul.
yeah, but also like Caleb's been looking really good. It's been on weaker teams against weaker defenses, but also Jaden Daniels has been mostly playing weaker defenses as well. So I would not currently trade Caleb Williams for Jaden Daniels, but I know that most people would. So
Maybe this needs to be talked about in tiers how we were doing standings though, because wouldn't you say that both Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, including Malik Neighbors, these are all guys that you're ecstatic if they're the number one overall pick and are added to your roster. I would argue that all three of these guys you could take in any order, and you can make an argument for it.
I would not put Neighbors in that category just because I just don't think that it's realistic with when you're looking at the QBs versus wide receiver. But I see what you're saying. It's kind of like the equivalent of
Yeah,
looking
so
at,
quarterbacks are always going to be more important in a super flex setting.
and it's harder to hit on a quarterback too. So
Yeah.
So I would
Like
personally, if we're
I'm
going to do
just
a
saying,
tiers, I would say Daniels Williams in a tier one, Neighbors on a tier of his own, maybe Marvin Harrison on a. I mean, I'd kind of put Marvin Harrison on a tier of his own, and then put a Dunze and May on a tier together. I'd say,
What
or
do we
well,
think
not
about
really.
Brian
It'd be
Thomas Jr. though?
yeah.
Or
No, I
like
know. I'm totally
DPJ?
missing him. You're right. I'd put probably a
Is that
Dunze, May, Brian Thomas, and Bowers on a tier together,
yeah,
and then
I
it's
think you could make
kind of
an
after
argument
that.
for Bowers in the Harrison tier as well.
You could probably make
That's
an
his name.
argument. Yeah. I wouldn't like I wouldn't go JSN on you for it for sure. So.
But I also will
Gonna
fight
be the
back
new
against the
term.
Neighbors in his own tier. I truly do think that, and I'm obviously a Neighbors owner. I think he's in that tier one talk.
I think maybe it's a little early, but
I don't know, man.
I mean Daniel Jones I think was top of that list for throwing to his first read.
That's
So
true, but we like that in this situation.
I know we like that, but Daniel Jones is he going to last for another year? He's going to last the whole year, like probably,
Well, the other thing you could say is
definitely.
if Neighbors is producing with Jones, then he can produce with anybody.
I mean, I think Neighbors produces with anybody. He deserves to be on that top tier wide receiver. It's just getting hyper targeted is nice. And if he's just Jamar Chase, which is very good, I would take Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams over them. It's obviously if Caleb Williams continues and Jaden Daniels continues to look like that top tier QB. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I agree. About adding Neighbors to this tier, I think there is something to be said for having kind of set and forget QBs in Superflex, especially like our league really is hesitant to trade quarterbacks, especially like good valid quarterbacks. So they just hold a special like what's the word I'm looking for? A special value, I guess, in our league.
okay, answer me this. You brought up an interesting question for me. What's the best quarterback to be traded? Like at the time, like Hurts doesn't count.
At their value.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's Caleb now. Caleb slash Kyler. Kyler's been traded several times. But
Well,
other
if you
than
consider that Caleb was being valued as a first round startup pick at the time of you trading for him, then that would be the case.
so it's either
But we haven't seen we hadn't seen him play at that point.
Yeah.
So
I guess Caleb doesn't really count, so really it's Kyler. Am I missing anything? Any other QB? I don't think so.
No, I think it's Kyler was kind of the
So the
best
only
quarterback since
tier
Joe.
of QB that is possible to trade for in our league, I think, is like that distressed QB asset tier, Like he's elite, but he's distressed a little, right? And like Kyler, and people don't love Kyler. In real life, some people are down on, a lot of people are down on Kyler here and there. In fantasy, they are as well, despite him being, a great fantasy asset. You can't go, it's really hard to trade for QBs, period. And so, like, Kyler being the only one that's been possible to trade for at that, like, pseudo elite tier is
And
interesting.
And
I feel like
distress
when that trade happened, and like granted that trade has worked out for you, but I definitely when it happened was like, oh, that's like an overpay, and then like, yeah,
I mean, I considered it an overpay as well. Although we should
kind of needs to be the case to like move these big quarterbacks is like these huge overpays for them.
But so Kyler was first traded to Austin though, and was Kyler like viewed? I can't remember. Was he injured still when he was traded to Austin? No, he was healthy when he was traded to Austin. I don't know. Anyways, Kyler is the answer, I guess, and it'll be.
Yeah, Kyler is.
I would love to see another big QB trade happen. I'm just curious. See what happens.
We just haven't seen one of these first round startup picks get traded since probably. Well, obviously it just happened with Caleb Williams, but I'd say before that maybe like Jamar Chase, which is 3 years ago now.
I mean, Jamar Chase wasn't he like a third round pick for us?
Well, I'm talking about what he was valued at when he was traded.
Oh, I see. Like if he's a top 12 kind of player, sure.
Like I would say at the time of you trading Kohansky, he was within the top 12.
Definitely.
If my memory serves me right.
No, definitely.
Oh, I'm just saying we haven't really seen many of these massive moves get done.
Yeah, like CD got traded when he was outside top 12.
Yeah. CD was probably around like back half of the second round.
Yeah, maybe.
When I trade for him.
Okay. Whoever's listening.
People are real hesitant to trade their.
Well, it's the whole reason is because you absolutely do need to overpay to even consider it.
Although, and I'm going to go on Alex's side here, it's the exact same thing for the elite wide receivers. For Jefferson, for now Neighbors, I guess, Chase, CD. I would argue that for that.
Allen Robinson there.
Sure. Like you do, it's going to be like a similar situation where you're going to have to overpay if you're going to be trying to get those guys. Not to the same extent.
But I think it would have to be to an extent.
As a QB though, like as to get Josh Allen, I don't know. I think you could get Justin Jefferson. I don't think you can get Josh Allen. So I don't think you can get CJ Stroud.
And it's going, yeah. As long as I trade, Josh Allen is on a do not trade list.
Should we end this one on maybe a sad note? If we're talking about untradeable assets, this was the untradeable asset for forever, right?
It's the inception of our league.
So what do we think? Like, is this ridiculous or is this expected?
He's not performing. He's not producing to the levels required to be the Dynasty 1. So I think it makes sense.
It is quite the drop, though. Like, isn't this Joe Burrow level? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're below Caleb and Jordan Love.
That's actually, yeah. I mean, but the numbers, they speak for themselves. His ADOT is like 3.2 this year, lowest of his career. I believe he's like the 18th best by points per game.
Yeah, it looks kind of rough, but you know that he could.
He is Mahomes.
He's Mahomes, and like maybe this year's not the year. I mean, if we looked at some of the elite quarterbacks that of recent history, you see like you do see down years. Like I'm just talking like Brady, Rodgers come to mind. I don't know if Breeze ever had a down year
Lamar
after
had some
Saints.
down years, and he's
Lamar's
number one
had
right
some
now.
down years. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised. Like the moment that like next year Mahomes is if Mahomes starts, throwing the moment he throws like a 4 or 5 touchdown game, he'll be like
Yeah,
shoot right back up, I think. So
it would be easy for him to go up, I think.
yeah. And if he goes back up, it'll kind of persist again. Like it was crazy last year for him to be the same as Josh Allen for like the entire year. Whereas
Yeah,
Josh Allen,
that's
like,
what I was like railing against was like, why are they considered the same? Like at this moment, like I get Patrick Mahomes is the best football player, but I don't know if he's necessarily the best fantasy player currently.
and that's also why Kyler Murray was always shat on, and you could actually trade for him, was because people didn't love him as a football player, but he was a great fantasy player. So it's kind of a opposite situation there. I don't know if in our league it would actually hold or not, but we're all human. We see Patrick Mahomes, we know he's amazing, um, but we're playing fantasy, not real football. So
Gotta score those points, or what are you doing for me?
well, guys, we kept it under an hour. I think we had some good conversations. The Yankees are up 3-2, and we have runners at first and second with no outs. They bunted them over, so this is looking good for me. I'm sorry, Cleveland. I am a Yankees fan. I did grow up in New Jersey. I should say that, at least partially. Yeah, Andrew, you're probably the one that made it through. So it's good to see you again, or good to talk to you again through the podcast, and we'll try to keep it up this year. So thanks,
We need to bring him
guys.
on.
We do. If you can make some time with the Bebe, Austin, hopefully he can come on for at least like 10 minutes here and there too. That'd be nice. So it's good to be back, guys. I'm not sure if we're going to change our league name or our podcast name, but for now, we're still Justin Fields fans. So until next week.